after all of these invasions, after the creation of these fiefs and this understanding of the feudal system and working out all of the kinks of feudalism, we have a calming down period, also known as the late medieval period. And in this time period, we have the creation of the modern day countries that we know and love today. England, after it has been colonized, after it has been settled by the Anglo-Saxons, are going to create some pretty magnificent stories about kings. The first one we have is William the Conqueror. Now, William the Conqueror is going to work to kick out the Normans of Normandy. He actually wins the Battle of Normandy in 1066, I believe is the year. And he's going to continue to unite most of England. King Henry II is going to continue with the unification of England by creating something called common law. And we've seen common law before with different names. Common law just means that no matter your status, you all have to answer to the same laws. This becomes a problem because King John is going to eventually abuse his power as king, and he is going to be forced at knife point, at sword point, to sign the Magna Carta, stating that the king cannot take away land, people, money from the nobles. The Magna Carta is going to be the first time that a king's power is limited. With each of these, we come closer and closer to the creation and the evolution of the Parliament in England. Now, Parliament is a body, a building with men sitting. At this time in history, it's all men, and creating laws and deciding on which laws will be passed, which will be thrown out. And it's not just the king making a unilateral decision, it's a collective of ideas. Eventually, though, England is going to go to war with France. This is called the 100 Years' War. And during this war, we're going to go back to the idea of nationality, of national pride, of people within the military and without the military, outside of the military, being proud of where they come from. Within France, we have a gentleman named Hugh Capet. He is the first of the Capet dynasty in France. He is going to come after the last Carolingian, remember Charlemagne, king. He moves the throne, the center of government, to the city of Paris. And he's going to unify and control most of modern-day France. Hugh Capet is not going to be alive, but his push towards French greatness is going to help move France, just like England, into this national pride movement. During the 100 Years' War, we have a woman who's actually a 16-year-old. She's a peasant who is going to help define France as a military power. Now, at this time during the 100 Years' War, France is actually losing the 100 Years' War. And that's a problem because nobody wants to lose. Joan of Arc is at home and she receives a message from God. Remember, most of Europe is Roman Catholic. So they're Christians. So Joan of Arc receives this message from God, and God is telling her that she needs to go and save the French military, lead them. So she goes to Paris and she tries to convince the king to let her lead the military. The king just laughs at her and tells her to go back home. But Joan of Arc is persistent and actually gets her way into the military. And she is known for riding into battle on horseback and charging at the front of all of the military men. She rallies the French men to win battles and to kick the English back to their side of the Channel. Eventually, Joan of Arc is going to be captured by the English. She's going to be held for ransom. The French king is going to refuse to pay it. So Joan is going to be tried as a witch for believing that she hears God, and she will be burned at the stake. But she is going to become a martyr within the French military, because the French military sees that her ability to rally the troops works. In Spain, during this time period, we have Ferdinand and Isabella first. Now, Ferdinand and Isabella are reigning during the time period that the Muslim Moors are trying to take over and recapture Christian lands. So Ferdinand and Isabella are going to unify the country by fighting a common enemy, the Muslims. They raise an army and they kick the Muslims out of Spain. Later on, we have King Charles V, who understands that Europe is no longer a place to expand. So he is going to send explorers across the Atlantic into the Western Hemisphere to claim the New World for Spain. In Russia, Ivan the Great has finally defeated the Mongols. He has centralized all of the power of Russia in the city of Kiev, and he is gaining more and more land. And he doesn't want to be named king. He wants more power, more emphasis in one word in how he is labeled. He will be a czar, and he will have all of the power. Russia at this time has converted over to Orthodox Christianity, and remember, Orthodox Christianity does not follow the Pope. They follow the Patriarch of the Byzantine Empire. And the church, with the church, the Tsar, is going to unify Russia under the religion, under the language, under the national pride. And Russia will become known as the Third Rome. If we think back, most of Europe at this time is Christian. But they're battling the Muslims. They're battling for cities to save people and to spread their own religions. In 1093, the Byzantine emperor, the Patriarch, is being invaded, attacked by the Islamic Empire. So the Byzantine emperor is going to ask for help from the Pope, because these Muslim Turks, the Ottoman Turks, are attacking and trying to capture the city of Constantinople, which is the center of the Byzantine Empire. So Pope Urban II gets this letter that's basically saying, help, help, help. The Ottoman Turks are trying to take our holy city. They're trying to take Jerusalem too. They're trying to take Damascus. So Pope Urban II says, oh my goodness, let's help. And he calls upon the Holy Roman Empire to send as many knights as possible to save the Holy Land. Yes, and to save the Byzantine Empire, because we need to do that too, because we're good Christians. Pope Urban II is also going to give this idea that if you fight during the Crusades, all your sins are forgiven. Every sin that you commit while you are fighting for the Holy Land will be forgiven, no matter what you do, and you will go to heaven. Pope Urban II says that all Christian soldiers are to recover the Holy Land, including Jerusalem. Get those Ottoman Turks out. Well, that's not just enough to get knights to all ready to go. So he has to give some extra incentives. Well, of course, there's the religious incentives. Let's go. Motive, let's go. We've got to save. We've got to convert. There's also an economic reason. As a knight going to fight the Crusades, I can keep whatever I get monetarily. The kings are also saying this is a great thing. We have too many knights, they're fighting each other, they're getting bored, so they're practicing on each other and killing too many people. So the kings say, if you go, I will give you land when you come back. I will give you money when you come back. This also gave younger sons the ability to gain land, money, position, rank, wives. In society during this time period, oldest sons would get everything. It didn't matter how many children you had, your oldest son would receive all of it. Oops. Even commoners were excited because of the religious aspect of it. Religiously, Christians believed we have to save the Christian family. We must go. We must fight. So we have 3 major crusades. There's many, many more, but 3 that we need to know. The first one, it's so unprepared, people. The soldiers, the knights are just going. They're not prepared. They have no strategy. They have no food. They didn't bring winter clothes. But somehow, they recapture Jerusalem from the Ottoman Turks, from the Muslims. And they capture other land. And so that other land, they're going to create crusader states. These are new areas that are controlled by the crusading knights. So the Christians win the first crusade. During the second crusade, we have a new leader of the Muslim Turks. His name is Saladin. He takes back Jerusalem. He is labeled, described as honest and brave and respectful. And this is a high honor coming from the Christians to the Muslim Turks. Because Christians, even during this time, don't believe that the soldiers from the Muslim Turks are worthy of respect. Because they're stealing the Holy Land. In the Third Crusade, Saladin meets an English king, Richard the Lionheart. Richard the Lionheart is going to work with two other kings or two other leaders, going to take back Jerusalem. And he is also going to earn the respect of Saladin. Remember, this is a big deal because they hated each other because of the differences. Who should control Jerusalem? Who should control the Holy Land? Well, in the end, Christians lose Jerusalem to the Ottoman Turks. The Muslim Turks are victorious. Not only do they capture and keep Jerusalem, but they're also going to capture and keep Constantinople. So in 1453 AD, Byzantine ends. So those are just some things. There's negative and positive impacts of the Crusades on all of Europe. Byzantine Empire has been destroyed. The nobles who had sent their knights, sent their money, sent their commoners to fight have been weakened. They've lost money, they've lost power, they've lost their protection. And the Pope is also going to lose popularity. He's going to lose control because he said, the Christian God is on our side. We shall win, no matter what. Well, the Christians lost. So people lost faith that the Pope knew what he was talking about. Kings become stronger. The nobles have to turn back to the kings for money, for protection, for land, for serfs. This requires the nobles and the knights to restate their loyalty to the king, to give up some of their power. And it leaves this negative legacy. Now, before, the Jews and the Christians, they weren't on good terms completely, but they could get along. But after the Crusades, there's even larger bitterness between the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims because of who should control the Holy Land, who was actually correct, and a forgetting that they all come from the same place. Now, some positives that happen. Trade is going to increase because of the connection that's happening. Even with fighting happening, you have cultures being traded, you have spices, you have fabrics, you have religions being traded. And Europe relearns things that they had lost and new information from the Muslims that the Islamic nation that had kept alive and continued to look at during the Dark Ages. Now, the Black Death is going to happen later, after the Crusades. And the Black Death is a disease. It's called the bubonic plague. And what happens is that this disease is carried on rats. The fleas on rats are going to carry this disease from Asia into Europe. And the bacteria is going to cause the death of about a third of the population and kill somebody in 3 days. Some positives that happen is that it's going to free serfs from the feudal obligations because the serfs are going to be the ones that are dying most frequently. Their ability to get more money, to get more freedoms, and to move are going to increase. But their movement into the city causes more of an outbreak, because the fleas are going to travel on the people, or the rats with the people, from the rural areas to the urban areas. The church again is going to decline because the Pope says, pray, pray, it will go away. When in reality, isolation, hygiene is what is needed. It's going to mess up trade, because if people cannot go from place to place without dying, then we cannot trade our goods and services, and people cannot learn new things. It's going to go everywhere over about 100 years, even reaching Scandinavia.